Thanks so much for joining us.
No worries.
Your talk just earlier was magnificent. There was so much, there's so much knowledge and wisdom that you hold, and so I felt very touched by that. So thank you for that. Now, to sort of cut things down and summarise it, it's hard to do that when there's so much, like there are little things within it that brings it that beauty. But to give people some context of who you are, where you come from, and a bit of your work, tell us about it.
So I work now in Larrakia, so up in Darwin. But my journey to get there has been a very interesting one. I suppose I started down in Victoria where I grew up, and then moved to Queensland and got into the youth arts scene after years of trying to work out what I wanted to be, who I wanted to be. And so ATYP had a big part of sending me out to communities to do work, and one of those was Tennant Creek, and I decided to move there because I thought I can't do the work I want to do unless I understand a place, and Tennant Creek was so confronting at that time, so were other places I went, and I went, either I'm going to ignore it or I'm going to lean in close to it. So I leant in close to it and just fell to pieces. Became a full-blown alcoholic. I probably was one already, but I got worse there, and really what I'd say hit rock bottom, and then made my way back up to Darwin. I didn't share it today, but every time I would drive past Dondale Detention Centre, I used to have this little voice in my head that would say, you need to do something in there, you need to do something in there, and I started doing something in there. Just using a bit of theatre, a bit of fitness and some hope theory called Balanced Choice, and next thing you know, we're rolling it out in lots of other different places and really just building relationships with people, which is cool.
Yeah, relationships is something that seemed to be a common thread throughout your discussion today, and a lot about your work seems to be connection and connecting people, and I think it's really important, especially in the arts, to sort of get an idea of what that is when a lot of companies are focused about getting funding and sort of figuring out their impact. Can you talk a little bit about how you see relationships and building connections and sort of in your work?
Yeah, so I love people. I've grown up around people, and I feel like that's why we're here, is to connect, and lost a bit of that. So going into spaces where people have been thrown away by society or locked away by society, and then getting alongside them and loving people and just being there alongside them through life, I feel like that's what I'm meant to do with my life. And then other people said, well, what you're doing, we need more of it. So then just sharing that with other facilitators, and they've come and got involved in it too. And I also, what I've said over the years is all my learnings come a lot of the time from communities, First Nations crew, but also the kids who have been locked up. And they taught me to love myself. And now I look in the mirror, I love that bloke. But when I was an alcoholic, I look in the mirror, I said, I hate that bloke. And that's the difference. And so I need to pass that back to them. And if I love them through their stuff, maybe they might one day look inside and love them. And then their world's just going to fly too. So that's the main reason we do the work. But what I also fell across is that if you make yourself valuable to people, your clients or the crew you're working with, clients is such a weird word, but the crew you're working with, then even if the system tries to kick you out of it, they can't, because the ones who you've invested in go, we want that back. And then all of a sudden it's this explosion of the work and more people to connect.
There's so much power in that. And you mentioned something that I thought was like really profound. It was like, who's developing who? And developing each other.
Because we were talking about the word community cultural development. When I was at uni studying theatre, it was like CCD, what is that? And then when you go to a community and say, who's developing who here? Because if you're going out to develop them, good luck with that. But if you're going to be developed, well, that's when things change. You can also put that in the word reached. So you're going out to reach everybody, or you're actually going to go sit so that you're reachable. Then that's interesting.
That's gorgeous. And it was funny hearing you talk about language and its spiral dynamics and how you sort of frame things. What's your philosophy around that?
Yeah, so I could give you the academic version, but I'm not good at that.
No,
so
you don't have to.
But when I say that, I surprise myself some days because we're now talking about it so often, it almost sounds like I know what I'm talking about. So, the positive psychology movement, Martin Seligman's work, Charles Schneider, which was all about hope theory. That was the first stuff we fell across, but that's because I've got a really smart uncle who's a doctor of foresight and future studies. So I'd tell him the work we were doing and he'd go, oh, that's hope theory. Read this. And so I'd read and go, oh, that's what we're doing. And then someone would push back and say, hope theory, no, that's not really, that's actually quite flawed. And you're like, okay. So I'd ring him and he'd say, well, go with learned optimism because you're doing that too. Oh, cool. So I read up about learned optimism, which is like looking at the cup half full instead of half empty. And then PERMA. Oh, PERMA's a style of work, which is positive emotions and engagement and all this stuff. But then I got introduced to spiral dynamics, and that was the work where how do you sit with people at government level, kids who have been running amok and having lots of trauma and stuff, and then, the entrepreneurs of the world, and how do you relate to those people and those groups? And so that's what I'm fascinated by. Just like going into some of those Aboriginal communities I'm so lucky to go into, I lean into government the same way. Because if I'm going to be telling people that everyone's a library, then geez, I'd want to make sure I'm being true to that everywhere I go, not just some places that I go. Yeah.
Beautiful. And it sort of comes back to you wanting to be the best adult that you can be. It's so beautiful.
Oh, there's so many crap adults, and I was one of them. I was so crap. And I just look back and go, I just realised how important it is to be different to that. And how do you be different? And then I started looking at things like just integrity, the word. I just crave that word. I just want to be someone who's known for integrity. That I'm the same person here with you now that I am behind a closed door later on today. And if I can do that, then I could ask others to maybe come and hang out and do something similar.
Yeah.
But if I'm not doing that, what right do I have to even start a discussion about it? So just live it before you talk it, and then you can talk it a little bit because you're having a crack at it.
No, well, good on you. Thank you so much for that. I think one more question, a sort of takeaway thing. How do you see the arts generally having an impact with people?
It's you, not me anymore. It's the baton change over. Like, I've been holding the baton for a while. It's time for you to run with it. You got way better ideas, but we've created systems that don't allow you to talk. We've done the same in prisons. We've done the same in schools. So I'm really interested to hand the baton over and just know that the work you're doing is beautiful, and that younger generation has such a better idea how to run this place than we do. But just also remember that we're always here for you if you need us, but it's your turn.
That's so lovely. Thank you so much for that. No, beautiful.